Commissioner. I also want to extend my thanks to all of the EMTs and paramedics who have been doing an outstanding job over these last few days. I want to begin at the beginning here. Remember, we had one of the largest snowfalls in the history of New York City. If we had had 0.2 more inches at the Central Park monitoring station, we would have had literally the largest snow accumulation in the history of New York City. So every city agency was stressed, but all our city workers kept working their way through it, fought their way through it, did an outstanding job. And remember, snowfall was not consistent in every part of the city. In fact, out at JFK, the highest reading was 30.5 inches. So some parts of Queens in particular got even more snow. That is an extraordinary amount for this city to deal with. It all came down in less than 24 hours. But our first responders did an outstanding job. Our sanitation workers, I'm going to be talking about all the folks who deserve our praise. I know other cities struggled, and a lot of them are not blessed with the kind of public employees, the number and the quality and the highly trained public employees that we have. This city, we are so blessed to have the personnel, the training, the equipment that allows New York City to turn on a dime. And things are not entirely normal today, but a lot of the city is operating well thanks to all of the people who work for the agencies represented here. So I really want to express my gratitude to all our public employees for the exemplary way they handled themselves in these last few days. So the people I've mentioned, obviously, our sanitation workers. I want to thank everyone at the fire department. They had to deal with all sorts of situations. We were out at a firehouse in South Jamaica, and the captain there said improvisation was the word for them over the weekend because they dealt with a whole lot of difficult situations. They had to think outside the box. They had to look everywhere, keep those hydrants clear. They did a great job. NYPD did a great job across the board, including being out there very visibly enforcing the travel ban. That made a big difference. That helped us to keep people off the streets so we could clear the roads. A lot of agencies were involved here. Department of Transportation worked intensely to keep our roads open. Parks Department did a great job, not just in our parks, but also preparing our beaches. It's part of why we were ready to deal with any flooding issues, and flooding issues were pretty minimal. So great job by parks. Great job by agencies that often don't get credit, but they're a big part of the storm response as well. Corrections helps out in a lot of ways. DEP helps out. They did a great job keeping all of their operations going. Department of Education workers, custodial workers, and others who kept our schools in ready shape so we could open this morning. So we thank them all. All hands-on-deck operation. Let me thank specifically the folks who are here from the different agencies so you know who's here. Our first Deputy Commissioner for Office of Emergency Management, Calvin Drayton, NYPD Chief of Transit, Joe Fox, DEP Commissioner Emily Lloyd, Buildings Commissioner Rick Chandler, Commissioner for the Department for the Aging, Donna Corrado, Parks Commissioner Mitch Silver, HHC President Dr. Ram Raju, our Senior Director for Climate Policy and Programs worked on all of our flooding issues, Dan Zarilli, DOE Deputy Chancellor Elizabeth Rose, FDNY, in addition to Commissioner Nigro, Chief of Department Jim Leonard, FDNY Chief of EMS James Booth, our General Manager for the Housing Authority Michael Kelly, Dr. Jay Varma, Department of Health Deputy Commissioner, Department of Corrections Chief of Department Martin Murphy, and Dan Teets, HRA Chief of Special Services. Also want to thank from labor, and we've had a great partnership with all of the unions working through the snow. I want to thank Harry Nespoli, President of Uniform Sanitation Men's Association, and Roy Richter, President of the Captains Endowment Association. Thank you to all. Now, this has been obviously one of the toughest challenges this city has faced when it comes to snow. The numbers prove it. But everyone did their job. Remember, at some points we were getting 2 inches or 3 inches even in a single hour, and that was happening hour after hour. When you think about that, it's extraordinary how well our workers kept going through it. Sanitation kept going 12-hour shifts, 2,300 workers per shift, and made a big, big impact. Now, here's the scorecard from my point of view. On the highways and on the primary roads, sanitation did an incredible job. I was amazed even by yesterday morning how clear a lot of our highways were. Secondary roads strong across the boroughs. Some areas that needed more work yesterday into today, but very strong. Tertiary roads, the smaller streets, a lot of the smaller residential streets, definitely more of a mixed bag. I think I could safely say Strong performance in Manhattan, Brooklyn, the Bronx. Some areas of Queens strong, others less so. I was out yesterday in Flushing, South Jamaica, Long Island City, Astoria. I saw good results even on the tertiary streets. I didn't see the kind of results I wanted in Sunnyside, Woodside, Elmhurst, Corona. We're going back today, and I got out there a bit today. I was in Corona. I was in Woodside. I saw some improvement, but we've got to finish this job today and get it done. Some areas of Staten Island also still need more work. I think the overall effort by sanitation was very strong in Staten Island. Now, in terms of equipment, over 2,000 pieces of snow clearing equipment out right now. They have never stopped. They went all day and night, Saturday, overnight, Sunday, kept going Sunday night into this morning. They will go all day, and they'll keep going into the night tonight, over 2,000 pieces. We now, as I said yesterday, we had 850 plows in Queens. We have added another 60 or 70 actually now from other boroughs. We're at 920 plows being focused on Queens. So we'll really be able to drill down on those streets where there's additional need. Want to say at this point, we do need help from people who will volunteer for pay, but come forward and offer their services to help us clear out bus stops and crosswalks and fire hydrants. We have jobs available. Those jobs start at $13 an hour. Someone help me. Is it $13.50? The price just went up. $13.50 an hour. And we want to encourage people. You can go to any sanitation garage up till 3 p.m. today. You can show up and get a work assignment and get paid. After 40 hours of work, it goes to overtime, so it's a great opportunity. If you want to check out where those locations are, you can call 311 or go online, nyc.gov/snowlabor. But we need people to come forward. You can make some good money the next few days and help your fellow New Yorkers to be safe. And again, when it goes to overtime after 40 hours, $20.25 an hour. So starting pay of $13.50 goes up to $20.25 an hour after 40 hours. Really want to urge New Yorkers who are able to do this work and have the time to come out and help us out. The storm presented a host of challenges, but again, each agency, I thought, handled it with great agility and creativity. FDNY pumped up the number of personnel to be ready for the storm. 500 more personnel were on duty in anticipation of the storm, 117 additional ambulances on the streets to prepare for the storm, and 119 probationary EMTs were sent to help in the effort. So great pre-positioning by the FDNY to prepare. Collectively, FDNY responded to about 6,000 incidents during the course of the last few days, 4,000 of which were medical emergencies. Again, thank you to them. Thank you to NYPD for great work in general and specifically around the travel ban. I think the overall effort by our city workers, very, very strong. Want to now give New Yorkers some reminders of things that people should know, things that people should do over the next few days. So first of all, look, things are getting better, and thank God we have a warmer day. We had a little bit of sunshine earlier. That's going to help melting off some of the snow, make it easier to clear. But still, you've got to exercise caution. It's still difficult driving conditions compared to normal, so I want people to assume that they have to be careful. Walking, we need to get sidewalks clear. Some people going out in the streets. I understand sometimes there may not be a choice, but be very careful, be very alert if you ever walk in the street. If you have any option not to walk in the street, stay on the sidewalk. And we are going to start to, in a moment, we'll talk about how we're going to push for those sidewalks to get cleared up better starting today. Want to remind everyone to check on your neighbors. If you have neighbors who are senior citizens or are disabled, check on them, see if they need anything. Make sure that you're there for them. Now, here's the challenge. I've been going all over the city talking to New Yorkers about the challenge. I understand what everyone's worried about. They've got snow on their car or on their sidewalk. Where are they going to put the snow? What we want people to think about here is, first of all, with your car. Don't think this is business as usual, because it's not business as usual. It's an emergency. So if you don't need your car, leave your car where it is. We have canceled alternate side parking all the way up to Saturday. This is a rare, rare situation, and it means if you don't need your car, unless you have a real urgent need for your car, just leave it. Leave the snow on it. Don't move the snow off it. Let Mother Nature help you. It will be warmer. There will be sunshine. Let some of that melt off naturally. Leave it so it doesn't end up in the street. If you put all the snow from your car back in the street and then your street is not passable, sanitation can't keep up with that if every time and again people keep putting more and more snow from the side of the street in the middle of the street. It will just block up the street. So this is a common sense matter. We want everyone's street to be clear and passable for emergency vehicles and for the residents of those streets, but everyone has a responsibility here. If you do not absolutely need to use your car, leave it where it is. Do not shovel it out. Things will, in the next few days, with the help of the weather, we'll have some of the melting off of that snow. That will make it easier. Same with sidewalks. You don't need to clear your whole sidewalk. We want people to clear about 3 or 4 feet, enough that someone with a baby stroller could get through or someone in a wheelchair could get through. You do not need to clear it all. 3 or 4 feet will do. If you clear your sidewalk 3 or 4 feet, there will be no fines. But if people don't clear their sidewalks, we're going to start now the process of applying fines, because we've got to get those sidewalks clear. We've got to get people to be able to walk safely and not have to go into the street. But again, as you're clearing your sidewalk, and I say this, some of you have evidenced my snow shoveling skills firsthand. If you're a homeowner, if you're a business owner, clear that 3 or 4 foot path, so 3 or 4 feet wide. Put the snow off to the side. Don't throw it out in the street, or you're just going to make it harder again on sanitation to keep up with all that they have to do. They are dealing with the most snow we've seen in a long, long time. Help them out. Everyone has a role to play in this. For anyone with health issues, please, we've now lost 5 people in the course of this storm who were snow shoveling. 5 deaths related to snow shoveling. That's a whole lot, and that's very, very sad, very tragic. Anyone who has a health problem and it suggests that you should not be shoveling, don't shovel. Don't shovel. Get a family member, a friend, a neighbor, pay a young person from your neighborhood, but do not shovel if you have a health situation that might compromise you. Again, want to emphasize, businesses in particular, you have an obligation to shovel out enough of your sidewalk so people can pass. Again, even if it's just a 3 or 4 foot wide area of the sidewalk. We're going to definitely be focusing today on businesses that aren't doing that. We will be applying fines to any business that does not shovel out. We have some businesses, particularly, we've seen, unfortunately, some parking lots, some gas stations where they put a huge amount of snow out in the middle of the street. That is not acceptable. We're not going to stand for that. There will definitely be fines for any business that's actually making it worse on their neighbors by shoving a lot of snow out into the street. Want to remind anyone again who is having problems with heat or hot water, we need you to call 311. If your building management is not dealing with your heat or hot water issues, we need you to call 311 so we can get you help. Again, emphasize, I want to do a few words in Spanish. I want you to hear from a couple of my colleagues, but emphasizing one of the most important messages: alternate side parking canceled all the way to Saturday. No reason to take your car out unless it's really urgent. Think outside the box. Mass transit is running. Work with your friends and neighbors. Maybe you can carpool, but try not to use your car if you don't use it, if you don't need it, excuse me. And in terms of school zones, we said today, tomorrow, if you're parked in front of a school where it says no standing school zone, you can leave your car there today and tomorrow. We want, again, not put a lot of snow in the middle of the street. We want people to leave their cars so we can get this job done. In Spanish, quiero dar las gracias a nuestros socorristas y empleados de sanidad pública por su gran trabajo durante una de las peores nevadas en la historia de la ciudad. Enviamos más equipos de limpieza a Queens, pero aún necesitamos trabajadores para limpiar nieve. Visiten la página web de Sanidad Pública para registrarse. Pagamos $13.50 por hora. Tengan cuidado al conducir y caminar y cuiden a sus vecinos. Recuerden que los negocios deben limpiar la nieve de sus cercas. Las reglas para estacionar están suspendidas esta semana. y llamen al 311 si no tienen agua caliente o calefacción. With that, I want to bring up two of my colleagues. I want to thank all of our other colleagues who are here. First, a woman who's been working very hard and sleeping very little, our Sanitation Commissioner, Catherine Garcia.
You also sleep very little.
That's true.
He emails me at 2 o'clock in the morning. So as the mayor said, we have over 2,000 pieces of equipment citywide today. We have over 900 pieces in Queens, but more importantly, we've moved over 170 front-end loaders into Queens because some of those streets a plow is not effective. The snow is too deep and there's not enough room, so we are literally going in, dragging it out. Queens is our first priority for today to make sure that we get all of those small streets open. And we are going to begin piling and hauling operations, which means we will literally put the snow in dump trucks and take it away. Some of that started in the other boroughs, and we will begin melting operations as well across the city. So today our focus is on those closed streets, piling and hauling, our bus stops, crosswalks, and anywhere near a school. In addition to our sanitation workers, we have 920 snow laborers, as the mayor mentioned. I do believe that we are making strong headway on our unplowed streets. We still have more work to do, and we are moving very quickly. It's just very slow. We have to use 2 front-end loaders moving end to end down a street to take the snow out. Just want to thank everyone for their patience as we continue to effort this storm.
Thank you very much. I want to bring up our Transportation Commissioner, Polly Trottenberg, and she's been doing a great job with her team getting at the different areas that we have to clear, crosswalks and other areas of the city, and she'll give you an update on the team that she's put together to do that. Transportation Commissioner Polly Trottenberg.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. At DOT, I was actually fortunate to visit with a lot of my crews yesterday, folks out helping sanitation, and we've brought some new equipment to Queens. We're also now really tackling our bridge and pedestrian overpasses, working with our contractor to clear all the bus stops, working with the BIDs and other groups around the community to clear our pedestrian plazas, and our signal teams are out. We've gotten so far and responded to about 500 requests to fix signals and signs. So we have our folks all over the city. The Staten Island Ferry has continued to run, and so we're making some progress, as Commissioner Garcia says.
Give them your your people on the street numbers. How many people do you have?
I have now I think I have about 400 folks on the street now, and we certainly, as the mayor had mentioned, we could use more day laborers if more folks want to come and pitch in on the snow clearing.
Good. I want to remind people again, that's for all the day laborers, $13.50 an hour. After 40 hours work goes up to $20.25, so it's a great opportunity, and we need as many people as we can get as quickly as we can get to help us do that work. Okay, we're going to be taking questions on the topic of the storm first, and then we're going to go to other topics. So let's start with questions related to the storm. Grace.
Regarding Queens, you talked about additional resources that are going there now. In advance of the storm, were there extra resources put in Queens? And could you explain sort of what makes that borough in particular so difficult? And is there anything more that could have been done in advance of the storm, just knowing how challenging it is with those small streets?
Yeah, I think, again, I want to be careful. We're talking about a borough of 2.3 million people and the biggest geographical borough we have. And the reason I say that is different parts of Queens had different realities. I went myself to see. Astoria, Long Island City, South Jamaica, Flushing looked pretty good. Corona did not, Woodside did not, Sunnyside did not. So we should just be careful to realize it's neighborhood by neighborhood. Second, parts of Queens got more snow than other places. Third, narrower streets. I talked to Borough President Melinda Katz, and we talked about some of the history, and she said really one of the contributing factors is smaller, narrower streets, harder to plow. But the fact is we had very, very substantial assets. Catherine can go over the details in Queens. What Commissioner Garcia did, which did not happen in the past efficiently enough in my view, and I remember 2010 when I was public advocate, I was going all over the city. We'll all remember that storm. The city didn't make adjustments as quickly as it could have. And it took days. My block, I remember it was at least 2 or 3 days after the storm had finished, my block in Brooklyn had not been cleared, was not passable. So the difference this time is we are sending the equipment where the need is greatest. As Manhattan got secured and much of Brooklyn got secured, much of the Bronx got secured, all the additional equipment was moved off to Queens to reinforce the Queens effort. So even yesterday when I was in Corona, I saw some unpassable streets. I went back this morning. They were fully passable because that additional, I think those reinforcements helped a lot. When this is all over, we're going to look very carefully at what happened. Even though it's one of the biggest snowfalls we've ever had, we're going to do an after-action report to figure out where were the strong elements of the response, where were there problems that we could do better on, and what adjustments do we want to make. So I'm becoming an expert on blizzards over the last couple of years. We make an adjustment every single time. And I think the team, therefore, is figuring out how to do things better each time, but we'll definitely make some adjustments after this one. Catherine, you want to talk about what you started with in Queens and
Certainly.
then how we reinforced?
Certainly. So we actually determine the number of vehicles that are going to plow our streets based on how long the routes are. And so Queens has far more pieces of equipment than any other borough starting out any storm. Because they have more lane miles. And we actually look at lane miles, not just the 6,000. For us, it's 19,000 lane miles. So their planning number, when we started this storm, was more about 740 pieces of equipment, spreaders, rear loaders, some smaller pieces of equipment for the small streets. And that is out of a total of our planning number with 2,200 across the city. What I'll say is that we got higher than that number during the storm as we were planning. I don't have that specific number with me, but at the end of the day, we ended up with more pieces of equipment out there. And then over the course of the storm, starting yesterday, at the end of it, as the other boroughs came out of it, as I said yesterday, we brought in additional plows from across the city. But I think the real key piece, because plows are really struggling out there, is that we have over 170 front-end loaders at this point in time, and we are bringing in additional for-hire front-end loaders. As they get here, the contractors have been notified. As they make it into the city, we will put them to work immediately.
I'm going to do one other announcement. I realize I skipped over one note. We want people's help. If anyone sees a manhole cover that was dug up by a plow going by, we want that reported right away to 311. It's been not too many of them, but it has happened in some cases. So if you see a manhole cover that was brought up, we want to know about it right away. Dave?
The situation, especially in Queens, with some of the streets anyway, was it a wise idea, in your opinion, to go ahead with the schools?
Absolutely, Dave. Because when you look around the city, again, go over the overall picture. Highways and primary roads in very strong shape, secondary roads broadly in strong shape. Tertiaries, it depends on the neighborhood. More work to do in some places, but we make one decision for a school system of 1.1 million kids. One decision. We cannot say in this neighborhood there's school, in that neighborhood there's no school. It doesn't work that way. We made a decision that was in the best interest of the overall city, that we obviously have to look at safety first, and we believe we had the conditions, even yesterday, emerging for a safe beginning of school. We know for some people they might end up being late. We get that. We know some streets were really tough. But overall, there was no question this city could get school off effectively and safely. And we owe it to our kids. We want them in the classroom. We owe it to our parents, many of whom work. We have a lot of parents, if school is suddenly off, they don't have another alternative for their kid. So this is a decision we make very carefully, but I'm convinced it was the right one. Go over to this side. Yeah.
There's some residents of Queens have been complaining about what they see on the street not matching up with what they're seeing in the Plow NYC map. Is there concern that the map is not reflecting reality? Why might not that be?
I think it is. No, I'm not concerned about that in the first instance. We've seen with Plow NYC sometimes there's glitches, but by and large I think it's a very helpful tool. And certainly if we see anything that we thought wasn't up to date, we will fix that. But I've heard, Plow NYC came out of that 2010 storm when there was a huge amount of confusion of why weren't there plows available, why was it taking so long. So I think the public being able to see in real time what's going on is helpful. Here's the rub, though. This is not your average storm. 0.2 inches more, it would have been the greatest snowfall in the history of New York City in the last century and a half. We got to get that through everyone's head. So much snow accumulated that what has happened is a snowplow goes through, a front-end loader goes through, and if then people, and I understand their impulse, if they go out and then clear their cars off, they literally re-block their own street inadvertently. No one means to do it. I drove a car for a long time, and I had to shovel out my car. I get the impulse. We tried to answer that by saying, we're going to give you an opportunity you've rarely had in this city. A whole week where you don't need to move your car. There'll be no tickets. There'll be no towing. Leave it. I understand not everyone can leave their car. I also understand habit is habit, right? People are used to doing it. But we have streets. I've seen some of them myself. The front end loader goes through. It's clear. Come back an hour or two later, and all the snow is back in the street that people took off their cars, and you take 27 inches of snow off a bunch of cars, you literally will block a street. So yeah, the plow went through, but people are saying my street's not clear. They're not wrong, but unfortunately, they may have contributed, or at least some of their neighbors may have contributed to it inadvertently. Jonathan?
Mr. Mayor, one of the key decisions for a storm like this is what to do with the mass transit system,
Yeah.
commuter rail, subways, buses. You know, sometimes it's closed, sometimes when it doesn't snow that much,
Right.
etc. How would you assess the decisions made for this time? Was it the
I
right
feel
one?
good about them. Great coordination with the governor, the state, the MTA, a lot of communication. I talked to the governor probably a half dozen times in the course of the storm. A lot of our team at City Hall was talking to the governor's office and the MTA constantly. I think the MTA made the right decisions. Let's go over it. And again, I want to reference 2010. A lot of you were there, saw it with your own eyes. Remember all the stranded buses. The MTA made a smart decision to get the buses in while they still could. If those buses had gotten stranded, EMS vehicles would have been stranded, firefighters would have been stuck, police, snowplows. So the MTA did a smart thing to get them in when they could, and that was part of why we were able to help them get back and running. Obviously, the state controls the MTA. They make those final decisions, but it was highly coordinated. Because the buses came in, because we put the travel ban in, sanitation had the freedom to go out there and plow as well as they did, which meant when the buses came back online, they could actually get around. I feel very good about the way the subways were handled. I think it was smart to not stress the overland trains more than they could handle. So again, you would have had a lot of stuck trains that would have made it much harder to get the system back up and running. But the underground trains kept going, and that was an evolution from the last time when we thought we were going to have a storm bluntly just like this one. It passed us to the east. It ended up hitting Boston and other places. The underground trains kept going throughout. So that was a great blessing and a great move. So I think it was really good decision-making, when to go down, when to come back up. Yeah.
You just now, another time, the last couple of days, have praised the success you've been able to plow because of the travel ban.
Yeah.
Is the travel ban something you want to see used more frequently for storms?
I wouldn't say more frequently. I would frame it this way. I think we're all in another world now. And I've been thinking about this a lot. I think this is the shape of things to come, and we should recognize it. Global warming has affected our world. We all know it now. Sandy was a result of global warming. These huge blizzards, what we saw in the middle of the summer when we saw one of the hottest summers we've seen in a long time. You're going to see extreme storms. We're going to have to prepare for them even more intensely. And a tool like a travel ban, which I think would have been considered very rare in the past, becomes more necessary. Now, you don't do it lightly. We debated well into the morning yesterday before going ahead and making that decision. We really wanted to be sure. Now, a little reminder. On Friday, and I have great respect for National Weather Service. They're our partners in this work. On Friday, I'll get the exact hour, but up until a certain point in the day Friday, we were hearing 8 to 12 inches. The last report I gave you around 5 p.m. Saturday, the Weather Service projection went to 24 to 28 inches. We ended up with 27 in Central Park almost, 30 plus at JFK. So when you look at that kind of progression, when you look at snow that can accumulate 2 or 3 inches in an hour, this is a whole new reality. And that means a travel ban is a tool we have to be ready to use. I think we're going to do more to project earlier even before we declare it that it could be coming, so people can make decisions about whether to open their business or what time to close it, have a contingency plan. But I would never use it lightly, but I think it's a tool you'll see used in the future, because if we don't use it at the right time, we then can't clear the streets. The reason we're relatively functional today is we got stuff out of the way. Marcia?
Given all the people who are so unhappy about their streets not being plowed, I wonder if you think it's premature to congratulate people, but secondly, what do you want to say to them about the realities of their streets not being plowed?
Oh, I think it's absolutely fair to say our public workers are doing an outstanding job. Our sanitation workers have been working nonstop, long, long shifts. They barely get a chance to rest before they have to go back. It's very tough work. I have tons of praise for our public workers. So congratulating them is the right thing to do. That doesn't mean the job's over. It's not. I went out to Corona and to Woodside today to see for myself. I could see the job's not over. I knew it already, but I wanted to see it for myself. No one's saying mission accomplished around here. What we're saying is a lot of good work has happened. You can get around this city by and large today. Everyone did the right thing, or that would not be true after what was one of the biggest snowstorms we've ever experienced. So I think a lot to be proud of, but more work to do. If I'm living on one of those blocks, I'm going to be upset. I want to get my block cleared. And that's why we keep sending more and more material over to more personnel, more vehicles to Queens. And there's some parts of Staten Island as well that we know need more work. And in each borough, there's going to be pockets that need more work. We're not giving up till it's over. But the overall result by the time rush hour began today, citywide, was very, very strong. Yes, please.
There were some people who were being led through Manhattan by cars on snowboards, and I guess the police stopped them, but didn't ask them to pull over sort of wink. I wonder how you feel about that.
I have to see the details on that. I would tell people to be very, very careful. I know that when it snows, people like to have fun, but safety first. That does not sound like a particularly safe thing from my point of view. Again, I think NYPD has done a great job being out there, making sure people are safe. But I would urge people to not go on a joyride that could end up causing them some real harm. Let me have the commissioner speak to that.
Sure. We had some intermittent problems with the chains, and we're looking at that now, if they were appropriate. Some of it was in the mounting of the chain. If they were improperly put on too close to the valves, they were snapping the valves on the tires. So we will ensure in the future that that won't happen. I think each storm or each emergency is a learning experience for us, and we'll move forward better. And I would say that all ambulances being ordered now, that has been the case, are now going to be four-wheel drive. That was done before this storm, but it'll take us a while to have a complete fleet that way, but that's the way of the future.
One of the issues that we're having on Staten Island is that there's a lot of communities that aren't supposed to get city plows going through. So a lot of people are complaining that their streets aren't plowed, but they can't get through, but it's not really the city's job. Is that something that you guys are struggling with?
Let's have the commissioner speak to that. So you're saying private communities?
Yeah, that still have streets and they can't get anywhere.
So, I mean, this has been true for many years. The city does not maintain the streets or any of the other infrastructure within a private development. We know that it's challenging, but we really are not authorized or allowed to do that unless there's some sort of agreement with the city. I know that many of the homeowners associations have struggled to get their private contractors in. We understand that. But right now we're still thinking through how that can be approached.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little more about the job for snow removal? It is a new thing. How many people do you need? Is it going to keep happening in the future?
I don't believe it's a new thing. I don't know all the history, but I can certainly say we need people. We will need them in the future. Again, you can go to any sanitation garage and sign up till 3 o'clock. I think it's between 9 and 3 each day. $13.50 an hour, up for the first 40 hours. After that, $20.25 an hour. We need as many people as we can get. And anyone who wants to know where to find their local garage, call 311 or go online, nyc.gov/snowlabor. In terms of how long we've been doing this? Emily Lloyd, 1993. Okay, there's a voice of reason. Well, we've certainly been doing it for quite a while. How many people? I think we need hundreds at this point. Yeah, I mean, practically speaking, as many as we can get, but hundreds certainly.
Mr. Mayor, the travel ban issue. This was a weekend, this storm, so it was probably easier. People are home, school's out. Would you consider a travel ban during the week if there was a projected storm of this nature?
Absolutely. Look, let's be clear. First of all, we were blessed that this storm hit after the Friday rush hour, concluded Saturday late night, gave us all a Sunday to do this work. Also Sunday, a relatively warm, sunny day today as well. So that's a lot of blessings. So I know everyone's gone through a lot. A lot of people have been inconvenienced. It has not been easy, but we should also put in context. If it had been in the middle of a week, we have another 3 million people come into the city to work during the week. It would have been much, much harder. But the same rules have to apply. I think in a weekday scenario, we're going to even earlier tell people to get ready for this kind of potential. We want to warn people that it's a tool we will use when we need to, because you see the results. And by the way, after the last storm, too, the one that was supposed to be as big as this and wasn't, it was in Boston, it wasn't here, we still ended up, if I remember, with something like 15 inches of snow. It was not a small storm by any measure. I heard from New Yorkers all over the city. I didn't hear the, oh, you know, you said it was going to be a blizzard and it wasn't, because I think they all know that we're not meteorologists. But what I did hear from people is they appreciated it got cleaned up, and that they understood the travel ban was a precaution. In that case, it actually sped up the ability to get the streets clear, and that's ultimately what people want, is they want their streets clear. So we will use it when we need to, not lightly, but when we need to. In a weekday scenario, we got to do our best to project that it may be coming so people can change their habits, stay home, work from home, you know, get ready to close early, whatever it may be. Because if we had not done it, I remember, I think, Juliet, you were around 2010 for those stranded buses and all. The domino effect is absolutely paralyzing. You get buses and trucks that get bogged down the streets. Now you can't plow. Now emergency vehicles can't get through. We cannot allow that to happen ever again. So better safe than sorry. That's the approach we'll take.
Following up on the question of the private contractors, we talked to the president of the Uniform Sanitation Workers Union this morning on Good Day New York, who said one of the reasons some of the tertiary streets, and not necessarily in private developments, but tertiary city streets in Queens weren't getting cleaned, was that the city contracts with private plow companies who weren't up, you know, keeping up with the work. Is there any truth to that? And
I think the world of Harry Nespoli, he is here. I don't know where he is, but I know he's here. And he's a good friend. Let me just say on this one, I think we just have a difference of the facts that we're working with on this one, because we believe that the fact is our sanitation workers have done a great job. They've been up against very tough conditions. Overwhelmingly, they were the people, of course, doing the work, not any contractors. So we haven't had a particular problem in the few instances when we use contractors. But the go-to is, of course, our public employees.
any idea when the trash pickup is going to start again?
Looks like several days, right?
Yes, our goal is to begin some containerized collection either tonight or tomorrow night. We're checking with our customers to see whether or not we have access at this point in time. For regular residential trash pickup, we're likely to be shooting for Thursday if I don't have snow.
So far, you don't have a projection of snow. Don't scare us. That was a very theoretical statement on the commissioner's part. We do not expect snow between now and Thursday at this point. But so again, Thursday's what we're shooting for, but job one is to get the streets clear consistently. Yes.
Do you know if you're using snow melters already, or are you still waiting for Mother Nature?
They were being set up this morning. I just don't actually know whether they've started operating yet. There's actually one down on Broad Street if you want to take B-roll.
Jen?
Can you tell us about the 5 people who died shoveling? Do you have any information where they have, what happened?
I don't know who, is it PD or FD? Who has the breakdown? Okay, hold on a sec. So Chief Leonard will go over that with you again. All 5 people, from what we know so far, it was all related to snow shoveling. Chief Leonard.
Sure, we had 3 the other day, 1 in Staten Island, 2 in the Rockaways, and then overnight we had, or in the last 24 hours, an additional 1 in Queens and an additional person in the Bronx, for a total of 5. Starting right at the beginning of this storm. Actually, the first one was Saturday afternoon, roughly 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Through today.
Yes, Jillian.
Mayor, this isn't your first blizzard. It's not the first time that people, perhaps in more car-dependent parts of the outer boroughs, have been unhappy with the plowing effort. I'm just curious if you're beginning to think or realize, as someone who's kind of in charge of running this now, that there's some limit to how quickly you can remove a certain amount of snow. Would you urge people to perhaps be a little bit more patient when you have a certain amount of snow?
This is a wonderful question, Jillian. First of all, Jillian, no disrespect to your word choice. I'm not kind of in charge. I am in charge. We'll show you the organizational chart if you'd like. The second point is New Yorkers and impatience go together. We're a fast, busy city. People are impatient by nature. I understand that. I signed up for this, and I understand people are going to demand a lot. Whether it's always reasonable or not is not the issue. But I will always tell people the facts. 27 inches of snow is a lot of snow. So we got to be real about the fact that that doesn't go away overnight. And if you have your street shoveled out and then you put a whole lot more snow from your cars in the middle of the street, your street will be blocked again. So it's a little bit a case of, one, everyone should hold the city to a very high standard. We accept that high standard. But every resident of the city has a job to do too. And if we tell you don't shovel snow into the street and you don't need to move your car, people have to the maximum extent possible, honor that. And I talked to people when I was out in Queens yesterday, and some people had very good reasons why they had to move their cars. Others, I think if they had stretched a little more, they might have been able to use mass transit or find another way. So the fact is people are always going to be unhappy if they don't get results right away. Our job is to give them the fastest, best results we can, to always be realistic about what we can and cannot do. But if you look at the overall results, I mean, I imagine everyone who's asking me questions has been driving around the city. Mainly, you can get around this city. There are some streets that are not good enough. Today, we're going to get at those. And I think by the time people wake up in the morning, it's going to be a good situation overwhelmingly in this city.
Just to follow up on the snow laborers, you obviously need many more of them. You've been talking about a $15 minimum wage. Why not offer $15 an hour?
Because this is the standard that we've been working with recently. And by the way, even with the $15 minimum wage, that's going to be phased in. So this is absolutely consistent with the way that would be phased in anywhere. $13.50 is a good hourly wage, going up to $20, $25 after you do 40 hours. That's a good deal. I think a lot of people will, if they hear about it, will take advantage of it. Yeah.
You have been working in constant contact with the governor's office over the weekend. It seems like you both have very high praise for the governor's efforts on this. Do you think this storm and its handling has gone any way toward improving your relationship overall with the governor?
Again, I think this notion of looking at everything through the prism of personality and emotion misses entirely the concept. We're here to do a job. In this case, I think that a lot of praise should be directed to the governor, to the state, to the MTA. They did a great job on their side and in coordinating with us. If I ever feel something's not good enough, I will say that. If I think it is good, I will praise it. That's my responsibility to people in New York City. It is not about whether people go and have a beer together. It's about whether we're getting the job done.
The immigrants allowed to volunteer to shovel snow?
No, and they are not. Only people who can show proper information. Yes.
I wonder if the fire commissioner can address, were there any deaths related to the ambulances delayed? And do you have an exact figure of how many ambulances were delayed?
No, the ambulances were periodically delayed all over the city as they would get stuck as any other vehicles in the snow. But of the 5 deaths, none of them were related to a delay in response by our ambulances, no.
Okay, anyone back there? Yes, Martha?
Mary, did you have people out bringing the homeless into shelters, and do you have any numbers about how many you were able to get into hospitals or shelters so they would avoid the worst effects of the storm?
Yeah, we had, let me do last night first, 41 people brought in last night, only one of whom was involuntary. Over the course of the storm, so that basically goes Friday night till now, 334 people have been brought in. I think it was 7 were involuntary within that. And since we started the cold weather season, really with the last few weeks, 912 people have been brought in. So both. Largely to shelters, but we do bring people to hospitals if they either need medical attention or if they prefer that. And obviously we have a lot of people walking into hospitals too. That's a separate category. We've had a lot of hospital walk-ins to our HHC hospitals.
Do you feel that these 912 people that you've been able to bring into shelters, that some of them might be convinced to stay there as opposed to...
That's absolutely the strategy we hope to employ. Now look, let's differentiate this. We're in an emergency environment. People may choose to come in for a couple of days, and they may be very consciously only willing to come in for a few days. That's different from what we hope to do with, for example, our safe haven beds and our drop-in centers, where we have a chance to actually focus on them and try and convince them to get the mental health support, the drug treatment, to show them that they can stay off the street for the long haul. So we're definitely looking for every opportunity to do it. I think it will happen in some cases. I think it will happen better through the other tools we have. Juan Manuel. Yeah, for a government job, obviously it has to be someone who qualifies. So in this case, no. If someone's not documented, they should not. But we know there's plenty of people who can qualify, and we want them to come in and do this work.
Claire, no one died as a result of the ambulances being delayed. I know that the 5 were shoveling snow,
Right.
but did anyone die as a result of ambulances?
And from what we know at this moment, no. It's as simple as that. Response times, as the commissioner said, were a little longer everywhere, but in fact, in these cases, some of the response times were normal or below normal. We had both, remember, ambulances, but also fire department rigs in some cases got there first. So response time was fairly strong. Look, these are tragic situations. That's why we want to keep saying to people, if you're not sure you're up to snow shoveling, please don't. Just don't take the chance. One back there, Rich.
Mr. Mayor, you seem to almost be enjoying yourself with the
Rich, I've had more fun than this, Rich. I remember what sleep was. You know?
That was essentially the question, but I also wanted to sort of follow up. You're sure that there's been sort of no thaw in the relationship with the governor? I know you're saying it's not a matter of personality, but it seems like there's been a lot of mutual praise going on.
Again, I think the point is there's a lot of communication going on. That's good. And in each of these situations, you always want an opportunity to communicate more and better. I think some of that is happening. But what I've got to emphasize is we're going to call them like we see them. That's the bottom line here. And I think this is, again, I borrow from Ed Koch on this one. I think he was right. We're never going to say, you know, to a governor, everything you do is right or everything you do is wrong in terms of New York City.